that comes, there's a lot of athletes that are here. We also are the city of entertainers. So what we did is we've set out to identify who of the celebrities are investing in venture and who are setting good examples. And so that's the idea behind our celebrity roundtables, where we help to identify that. So we've been doing roundtables. They're 18-person roundtables, mostly with business managers and agents, some financial advisors, all of whom have celebrity clients, as well as VCs and startups that have had celebrity investors in them, to talk about what doesn't work, what are the challenges, and then what does work. And that's how we come to this. So 3 years ago, we started doing our we had the first annual celebrity breakfast at the beginning of Tech Week, which was all business managers. Last year we had Matthew Lowe, who was Rob Lowe's son, as well as some other representatives. And this year we've upgraded. We actually have some actual celebrities in the room this year. And with that, I'm going to call up our first one, Marcellus Wiley. For many of you who follow the NFL, you know that he was a defensive tackle. He sacked a lot of famous quarterbacks. He's coming up. I'm glad you didn't sack me the other day playing pickleball, though.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little worried about that.
It is coming.
I think I lose that one. So you can sit here.
He just called me a defensive tackle. Am I that fat now? Am I that
Defensive end, man. I used to run.
So confession, I'm not a huge football fan. So obviously,
Captain
right? I'm not sure I could tell the difference between the end and the tackle.
Oh, it's all good. It's all love.
Right. Well, great. So thank you for being here.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Great.
I know a lot of people out here. It's crazy. A lot of familiar faces. Craig Bowers jumps out. Childhood friend, right? And now we're walking around with salt and pepper beards, bringing our kids to these same events. Just an amazing experience being from Los Angeles and Angelino, and the journey, as we all know that we're supposed to stay in the present through that journey. But for me, it was an aspiration for a destination. Like I just had things in my mind, things in my head that I wanted to achieve, that I was at times a little scared and nervous to share with the world. So instead of telling everyone, I just started to put the work in. That's how my journey started. Like the jet fuel was pretty simple. Classroom and then that field. And I just used those two, I felt, superpowers to try and navigate my way out of my neighborhood, out of what I was dealing with in university.
Right. So I think, a little bit of your background. Right. You're a local boy, right? As you just mentioned, you know Craig and you know some other folks here. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. When you went into the NFL, were you thinking at all about what you do after, or was it just all about the game at that point?
Yeah, I guess for background, I'm from Los Angeles, Compton, California, so I'm pre-NWA, so that means it was real. Like everything Ice Cube was writing down and saying, damn it, I had to live through it, Like I predated that, so Boy in the Hood, Menace Society, all that stuff. Depictions of the neighborhood, but at the same time, all of that stuff didn't happen every day, but those were some of the ingredients of my day-to-day life. It was a different world. Colors meant, you lived here, you represented here, you stayed there. And so I didn't even know some of the subcultural things that I was internalizing. I would look at a sports team, I would look at a hat of a team, and immediately I'd say, oh, okay, Seattle Mariners. And then my subculture would kick in and say, ooh, that's something different. That's rolling 60s, right? And so I had a different way to navigate. And there was so much of my RAM, so much of my brain power just being absorbed, just being used for things that I didn't think were going to help me in terms of reaching my destination. So the only protection I truly had was staying immersed in my schoolwork and in sports. that was my background, and I just used that. I was the nerd who got teased in class, but then they would stop short because they needed me on the field, right? Damn it, he's the MVP too, like, you know what I mean? So that was another protection, because I never felt the full weight of those pressures that I think a lot of people get. My identity to others was I was an athlete, a student athlete, a good kid. My identity to myself was I wasn't a football player, I was playing football. And I knew it was going to come to an end, and I knew I was going to get all I could while I was playing it. And my son is here, he's 9 years young, he's a little flag football player, which just shows you the difference in the day I grew up and the day he's growing up in right now. We didn't even play flag football. We didn't even have flag football. Matter of fact, if we had it, we wouldn't have played it either, because they were like, oh, that's not football. And it's a different world. And I love it because when I was growing up, I just wanted to make sure I could accomplish my goals. Simple goals, like close your eyes, what are you dreaming? Wake up, make that reality. And I wanted to be a school teacher, and I wanted to be a football player, but I thought putting all my eggs in that basket wasn't the best thing. So my approach to the NFL wasn't traditional. I wasn't going to take the yellow brick road to the NFL. And everyone thought I was, so it comes to high school, and I'm a deal. I'm not a big deal, but I'm a deal, right? Good player, really good player. Had opportunities to go to a lot of big schools, big football factories. And I was sitting there, and then this one letter came from a school that frankly I never heard of. It was Columbia University. And when I saw that letter, the first thing, yeah, rock on, roar Lions, roar. Let's see, sure. And I saw the letter, and the first thing that jumped out was like, man, those some cool colors. I was like, oh, they got Carolina colors, right? And quickly I realized, no, Carolina has Columbia's colors, right? But I digress. I'm looking at all these big football schools. All my friends said, you're going to this school, you're going there. And I'm like, that just sounds typical. That just sounds like, here we go again. The football player from Compton, brother, big dude, goes to blah. And I was like, man, I've seen that story. I've heard that story. Even in success, I've heard it. But I was like, So I was intrigued. Went to Columbia on my recruiting trip, 4 other trips. You get 5 total, 4 other big schools, and 1 to Columbia. And boy, when you land in New York City with 48 hours and an unlimited budget, which was $20 back then, like, they fed us pizza, took us to the parties.
Best place for pizza in the world.
Oh my God, I never knew. I was like, what? So I walked into Coronets, it's on like, what, 1/10 or something? Yeah. 1/10, and I walk in there, and the pizza was bigger than me. I was like, damn, this is a big old pizza. And then everyone's folding it up. I was like, what are you guys doing? You packing it? And they're like, no, we're about to eat it. And I was like, amazed, going from LA to New York, where we're driving everywhere, they're walking everywhere, they're pedestrian. Well, we're polite, even though we're a little pretentious and fake at times, but we're polite. Hello, what do, right? In New York, man, move. Get out my way. I'm not looking at you, I don't care about you, right? And I just love the contrast. And, you fast forward, I'm at Columbia, and I'm playing football at the worst college football program. Oh, this is not hyperbole here.
Because Ivy League's the worst, and you guys are the worst of us. And I was because actually the years I was there, our team sucked. Not Columbia, but yeah.
He's right though. I mean, literally there were articles. The worst college football program in the country is Columbia. Until Prairie View broke our streak of consecutive losses. It was unreal. And none of that fazed me. And it didn't faze me because my intentions weren't to make Columbia the best football program in the world. I wanted it to be a part of who I was so I could be the best version of myself. And I knew that that label needed something unique. It needed something different. It needed something that stood out. And everyone told me I wouldn't make it to the NFL because I went to the worst program. And there was no better feeling than hearing my name called and realizing that I just accomplished living out the best of both worlds, which I didn't have to sacrifice my academics to go play football. And now I just realized I didn't have to sacrifice football for my academics. And everyone else was caught up in how much money I made and who you get drafted to and all that. And I literally kept saying to myself, I can't believe that both of those worked. And they worked together. And then next thing you know, you're in the NFL with the big boys, and life changes.
So when you got to the NFL, so first off, how much of the decisions you made were all yours, or were you influenced by someone? Was there a mentor in your life that helped guide you to make that decision as far as going to Columbia as opposed to going to Georgia or North Carolina or one of the SEC schools?
Yeah, a couple of people intently told me to go to Columbia, but you can use anything for reference, and like the definition of others. Like you could say, oh, look at those guys over there. That's who I'm not. That's what I'm not going to be. So growing up for me, I knew that I was not a bad kid. I knew I wasn't a gang member. I knew I wasn't going to be a drug dealer. I knew I wasn't going to go that way. So that helped define who I was by saying who I'm not going to be. In terms of my Columbia decision, it was a guidance counselor. So I came back from all the recruit trips and finally, and I'm sitting down with her. She's like, all right, it's time to make a decision. What are we doing here? And every one of my friends was like, go to all the football schools. And then I told her all the schools, and she was impressed. She's like, wow, this is so good. We've been working so hard. You have options. And then I saved Columbia for last, and I said Columbia, because I didn't really think I was going to go there. So I saved it for last, not because it was the best, because it was like, all right, and Columbia. And she was like, her eyebrows jumped. And she was like, you can go to Columbia? And I didn't understand her response, but as we were talking, she was like, Marcellus, when this is all said and done, to have that be on your resume, a Columbia graduate, that's going to pay dividends forward for the rest of your life. And I really took it to heart, but I still was going to go to the football school. I was like, nah, she's just talking for her experience. Let me talk for mine. Until I went outside and was talking to my friends, and literally one of them said, man, you going to Columbia? And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I was like, why are you going to school in South America? I said, oh, God. And that told me, I lumped all my friends up. I said, everybody said football schools, you're thinking like this kid right here, I'm going to Columbia. And that's how it happened.
Okay, so I'm going to leapfrog a lot of NBA talk and get to you coming out.
You think you see Meta right here? Look
I know, actually, you just walked in.
Oh, okay,
look
at him. Well, you want me to get off the stage? I know basketball players. We know the pecking order.
The NFL. So I'm going to leapfrog that to where you came out.
Yes.
And you retired. You had to decide sort of the next thing to do. I know you spent some time on television.
Yeah.
When did you decide to, and I think it was during while you were on television that you started making other investments?
Yes. You know, there's an old saying, especially in football, don't say hello when it's time to say goodbye. So a lot of times when it's time to retire, guys start thinking about what's next. But that's the wrong time, because you notice guys at the end of their career, all of a sudden they start networking. Oh, first time I've seen you here. You get 13th year. It's like, oh, come on, dude. Should have had seeds planted in the community earlier. Why? Because the rookie is there now, and the rookie's probably doing the same things, etc. So I didn't wait to the end to start thinking about what I was going to do next. I knew that it was going to come to an end, so I always had a plan. And ultimately, my plan was to make my voice loud enough that people will listen long enough so I can do things to help people. And that was just simple. So when I was retiring, a lot of people were saying, don't retire, even though my best football was behind me. But you can still play, you know. You can milk it. You can wring the towel out a little more. And I said, no, I wanted to save some of my body for my children going forward. And I left literally with a plan to do something, but that something wasn't defined. But I retired after 10 years. And ESPN called. I was working at NFL Network as a correspondent. I hosted shows, you fast forward, for 20 plus years. Fox, FS1 as well. And that was something to keep me in the space. I loved it, the passion, but that wasn't my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is what I'm up to now. And in terms of investments, two best friends are Wall Street execs. That one of them I grew up with, so one's at BlackRock, one has his own private equity, and they've always talked to me about investments. They always talked to me about capital. And that was one of the best experiences I had of going to the school I did. You imagine walking around a campus and every single person you talk to is thinking they're going to be successful, and not one of them is thinking they're going to use their body. They're all going to use their brain. And that was the most amazing experience, because where I grew up, it was just the opposite. You know, a lot of people were thinking they were going to use their body. And so we formed some of the success stories, some of the failures. We formed our investment group called Intelligence. And we went out and made some investments, some real estate plays. A couple of them hit. And then 2008 came too. Let's pivot, baby. Let's pivot. I'm not a basketball player. I know how to pivot though. Golly, what's going on in Miami? So we had that run. So to fast forward, I know Meta's here. I know you don't like me anymore. What happened was I'm at Fox. And I'm sitting there, I'm doing what everyone else does, arguing over the Jets and Patriots, who's gonna win by 3. I'm almost 50, and I'm like, man, dang, when you gonna do what you really wanted to do? Like, but I was in the velvet coffin, as they call it. You know, they were rubbing my belly, paying me fat and full, and I was just dying slowly. I was like, this is great. And then I had a wake-up call with my son. One of his favorite athletes was Cooper Kupp. Matter of fact, every kid out here loves Cooper Kupp. It's unreal. And I remember we did a segment on Cooper Kupp, and he stays hurt, even though he's great. He just stays hurt. And it was, it wasn't the most flattering thing. I wouldn't want his mom to be in the studio when we were saying it, right? We're broadcasting this to the national audience. And I remember that broadcast was the first time I thought about my deeper intention. So I go to practice. I coach my son. I coach all these kids. And in my practice, for our championship game, same week, and every kid is like, all right, I'm Cooper Kupp. They're lining up as Cooper Kupp. And I was like, I'm interested. You fast forward to our championship game, we win it. Guess who shows up just randomly? Matthew Stafford and who? Cooper Kupp. And these kids forget what coach is saying, and they're gone. And then they get there and they freeze, because they're like, oh, wait, we don't know him. Like, they're like, we're in Vegas. They're like, hi. And then one of the kids runs up to me and says, can you introduce us to Cooper Kupp? And I go over and say, hey, Cooper. He says, hey, what's up? What's up? And I was like, oh, this is not it. Like, I'm in a world where I'm contributing to where we're not necessarily talking about this guy in the way that he should be respected, which is what I just saw. Like, this guy's a hero. So instead of challenging that economic model, I started to make my own model. So I wanted to do content with intent without losing a cent, which is hard as hell, remember? Like, oh, I'm gonna do something positive. People are like, yeah, okay, how much money you wanna lose? You know that? And
not for loss.
Right. And I went back to my Columbia moment when I got drafted, and I said, oh, you can actually do both without losing and sacrificing one. So I have 3 things going on. You guys see this right here. This is my nonprofit, Project Transition. We'll make sure to give you guys all some messaging from that. We educate and empower the underserved kids, and underserved doesn't mean poor. Please play with your synonyms properly. Underserved means mommy and daddy, we're rich, and mommy and daddy is in Taiwan and Dubai. Okay, so the rich kids need it too, just like the poor kids who need it as well don't have the same amount of resources. So we educate and empower them through experiences, exposure, and events. That's one. Part 2 is Echo Network. I have a partner, Mark McDonald, which we're doing content with deeper intent messaging to really try to empower people, to make them the greatest version of themselves. And the last thing I have is a portfolio holding company, venture arm with Sideview Ventures. So Kevin Harrington, Michelle Billy over there, we started up a venture firm where we can go out in the community and find those middle market products, give them the support they need to go to the next level. So that's been exciting as well. So I'm just a kid from down the street. I dare you to go there. And that just tried to do things the right way. And so far, so good. Despite some of those left turns, things are going all right.
Okay, so you just mentioned I dare you to go there. Yeah. So I'm gonna draw on someone in the audience who's there. Craig is working on trying to do the South LA Brewing Company in the Goodyear track. Mm-hmm. And if anybody hasn't been to the Goodyear track, Sola Impact is there. They've built a beautiful campus down there. So when he says he dares you to go there, it's not as much of a dare anymore, right? I think, but most people wouldn't know that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's a completely different animal now, which is a great thing. You know, not to get deep into the politics of it all, but you know, I think gentrification and what you see now and the diversity that is now, which is cyclical, because you know, my grandmother's from Watts, California. Watts riots happened. She's like, "Ooh, too crazy, too violent, too gangster. We're gonna move to greener pastures. We're moving to Compton." Damn, mama. All right. Good sense of no, yeah, good sense of direction. So then, unfortunately, see, I'm the king of levity, so I laugh at my pain. So excuse me, people. So then my mother, she's 17, has my sister, my older sister. She's 19 with me, and she has me. And the story goes, she's like, "This is too crazy. Compton is too crazy." She had lost a couple of brothers to the streets, everything. She's like, "We're going to move to greener pastures. We're going to move to South Central." So it's like, damn, these lateral moves, moving us up somehow, some way, right? So everything's different now. And when you look at it, it's the investment in it. So there was a time when I lived there, you know, I say the things that are really occurring. So I knew we lived in an apartment. I knew that we should have owned something. I knew that. We didn't have the means to do that. We didn't have the capital in our house to do that. And I kept seeing the check every month going to Robert Gint. And I kept looking at Robert Gint like, who is this Robert Gint? Because he is getting it. He is eating off us. So to your point, there's investment opportunities there as well, as we've seen the growth of those communities, the value of those communities go up, as they always should have been, but now I think it's being properly recognized. You can't go west anymore, and not a lot of people want to go north.
So have you invested there? Have you looked at investments in that ecosystem?
Yes. I guess to take you one step further, there's this one opportunity. So we do a lot of the consumer goods, products and goods. There's one that's really going to pierce through that community. If anyone lives in LA, you know we have an issue with these snatch and grabs, etc. Yeah, call it like you see.
It happens in Beverly Hills too, by the way.
Oh, trust me, it happens everywhere, right? It happens down the street from where I live. Everywhere, right? The consequences are different, so therefore these people are committing crimes at a different rate. With that said, there's a non-lethal weapon that is being created that we're investing in that's going to really catch fire, especially in neighborhoods where this is happening and happening a lot.
And is that an LA company?
No, it's not an LA company, but it's an LA investment.
Read them here.
No, we're trying. And their taxes, people are going that way. They're not trying to come this way for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the ecosystem as far as investment opportunities? Baron's back there.
Yeah.
All right, you're outnumbered now.
Oh, I know. I can see it. All this basketball's in the building, right? Aaron Davis, Meta World Peace, right?
So before we bring up Meta, is there anything else that you can think of about the venture ecosystem here in LA that excites you?
What excites me is the growth opportunity. What excites me is, I think, LA hitting the ground. You could talk about what's going on in our investment community and Silicon Beach and everything that's happening, but just seeing this room, knowing that we can close that gap, instead of always exporting out, like you said, to the Bay Area, to New York, etc. And being a guy who's lived in New York as well as LA, I can see where we can close that gap in terms of community. So in New York, you're forced to be around people. Like, diversity is a whole different meaning over there. Like, you know, we say diverse over here, we're in our car most of the time, and then we're like, I stopped at your house, and that was my experience, right? But in New York, it's like you just walk by a billionaire, you just bump shoulders with somebody, you just walked into a cafe. Like, all of those things happen at a much different rate than it does in Los Angeles. So our deeper intention is to do things like this. And with this comes the opportunity for us to cross-pollinate in the network. So I'm excited about us just redirecting how we network, how we work the net, because we're not built in infrastructure to do it. Like, you can live 2 miles from me and it takes 30 minutes. And I'm like, bruh, I see you never, you know, it's just not happening. And you know, yeah,
My
right.
best friend from 7th grade lives in Studio City, and I live over the hill on this side, on the west side, and I see him twice a year.
Yeah. And
If
just,
that.
yeah, just based on our logistics, it just becomes difficult to get those unintended consequences of the just random connect. Like I just walked into Starbucks, and normally you walk into Starbucks in New York, it's a different value prop than you do in Los Angeles. So these type of events really help with that.
Great, I appreciate that. Meta, are you ready to come up? Where'd he go? Oh, he's over there.
He's 7, 8. He's up there. Where'd he go? He's up there.
He's up there. I gotta look up.
Right.
Awesome, awesome.
All right.
You can either stay up here, or it's up to you whether you want to step down. But we're gonna bring you back up for a group Q&A.
Oh, okay, I'll let Meta have his time.
All right. Excellent. So you kind of heard a little bit of what we were talking about, but let's go backwards here. Oh, do I smell?